Sara Carter, Fox News contributor and intrepid investigative reporter, and one of my favorite people to be on with, and David Schoen, who is a terrific lawyer, a civil liberties attorney, and I always learn something when I tune in to David when he's on or talk to him. So thank you both for being with us. And let me ask you about the most recent news that came out today. This is going to, of course, change the immediate news cycle yet again, that Michael Cohen taped his conversation with President Trump regarding a potential future payment to Karen McDougal, who is a Playboy playmate who allegedly had an affair with Trump many years ago. And apparently, she wanted to get her greedy hands on a few greenbacks, and there was a discussion that took place. David, since you're the lawyer, let me go to you. Is there anything illegal or criminal about paying somebody to go away?
Absolutely not. And as you well know, Greg, it happens every day in settlements across the country in all kinds of civil cases. I think the greatest importance this revelation has is probably it gives more entertainment value at the checkout counter in the grocery store now. I sort of put it in the Kardashian, Paris Hilton category of news. The only issue they try to make, potentially, one can see, is that this was somehow a payment to affect the election. He was paying hush money or authorizing the payment of hush money to a person who had bad news and might impact on the election. It's absolute nonsense. And it's not just nonsense. It's offensive to the American voters to suggest that the voters in this country base their sacred vote for president on either Russian propaganda or a calculus as to whether the president or potential president had an affair or didn't have an affair. And we know, from history, that those facts only go so far. We don't have to look any further than President Clinton and his popularity when, that's a proven fact about the affair. But it's really offensive to the American people, and it's offensive to the American people to keep spending money chasing these things down. I understand it's a sexy story. And by the way, the story itself, of course, raises so many issues about why it was taped, what that does to his professional standing, all of these kind of, who leaked it, what agencies did. Of course, the DOJ regulations prohibit an agent involved in investigation from seizing items from a lawyer's office. It's supposed to be a taint team going in. So there are all kinds of issues. But anyway, that's a
lot of it is covered by attorney-client privilege. That privilege, by the way, is not held by Michael Cohen, but by the client, which would have been Donald Trump. Only he can waive the privilege. I suspect, the information we're getting is that Cohen's lawyers, coming through files, saw this conversation. They alerted the president's legal team, and they probably said, you know what, there's no there. No need to hide it. It'll be leaked by the Department of Justice anyway, so we might as well get ahead of the story and report it ourselves and tell the truth about it. Sara Carter, this whole business about, affairs and payments and so forth, that was largely baked into the media narrative before the election anyway.
They were, and this is about character assassination, right? And disinformation campaigns that we've seen with the alleged Russia collusion. Now we have this. This is part of a character assassination campaign against President Trump. And if we look through history, as David Schoen so rightly put it, we've seen this over and over again. It is a sexy story. People want it out there. I think my concern, Greg, was looking at the fact of, attorney-client privilege, wondering how many more recordings, Michael Cohen has or other clients that he may have recorded. And also, how did it leak? When you mentioned the Department of Justice, of course, there are guidelines that must be followed. And you think, well, then who in the DOJ had access to this? Who leaked this? Were there copies made? Could this have been a separate copy of the Michael Cohen tape? Could it have come from somebody else? That would have been interesting as well. So there's a lot of questions here, a lot of questions that need to be answered. And likely, more than likely, this has nothing, there's nothing criminal here. There's no issues here of that nature. It certainly will drive home for the mainstream media this continuous push to go after President Trump. And, of course, people are going to look at it. It's important. I mean, it's a story. It's out there. And now it's going to be up to the White House and up to the administration to decide how they are going to handle this and how they're going to move forward with this, because it's certainly something that's going to take up a lot of airtime.
You know,
Greg,
go ahead, David. Go ahead.
I just want to jump in two things. You know, Sarah is absolutely right, and she's hit all the issues, as always. I think I sort of wish that Mr. Giuliani would stop commenting substantively about this tape or anything else. I'm sure he knows what he's doing, etc. I don't want there to be somebody claiming an issue of waiver, etc. He doesn't speak for the president. As you said, it's the president's privilege. That's number one. But number two, as you know, Greg and Sarah, in these tape cases, what can be the most vitally important evidence, if there is any issue at all, is what wasn't taped. What conversations went on that weren't taped? Because remember, Michael Cohen or whoever it is doing the taping controls what to tape and when to tape it and when to turn it off. So if the president, for example, said, I won't be a part of any kind of hush money thing, I don't want this to look like it's hush money, and that wasn't taped, that's obviously the key bit of evidence, and all people will hear what's on the tape.
Let me turn to another story that's coming out here, Sarah. Judicial Watch today expects the Department of Justice to release some redacted documents about the infamous FISA warrant to spy on the Trump campaign and how it was hidden in footnotes that the unverified dossier was actually paid for by the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee. What do you know?
Well, this is what they've been waiting for. Without Judicial Watch, Greg, I think that a lot of us would be left blinded. I mean, they really have had the power to fight back the federal government in court. This is this Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the warrant to spy on Carter Page. The fact that they did hide that in the footnote, it was not overtly obvious to the court, was something that was deeply concerning. In fact, they didn't lay out, they just said opposition. I mean, it was very small. It was in the footnote. It didn't lay out that it was Hillary Clinton. It didn't detail the campaign. So it is very important. It's vital. It's vital that those documents be released so that the public can see what was going on. Secondly, I think it's also vital and very important that the 19 pages of the last FISA warrant that was taken out on Carter Page, that would be the one that was signed by Rod Rosenstein, that those documents also be turned over to the public. Remember, there are 19 pages. Now, the House Intelligence Committee, some members there have actually viewed these documents. They believe that it's important for the public to view these documents. But what's happened is the Department of Justice has basically put a noose around their necks, not allowing them to release any of these documents. Right. The president would be the only person right now that could authorize that release.
You know, we did get some of the FISA documents through the release by Congress, the House Intelligence Committee, and some memos from the Senate side. And in fact, David, in my book on page 159, my book, by the way, is called The Russia Hoax. It's out on Tuesday, or you can pre-order it on Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. But on page 159, I recite verbatim footnote number 8, in which the government, the Department of Justice, and the FBI absolutely disguised and buried who paid for the anti-Trump phony dossier. We now know it was Hillary Clinton's campaign and the Democrats. And so I recite that entire footnote on page 159. And not long ago, my wife read the book for the first time, and she got to that page, and she read that footnote, and she turned to me when we were on a plane, and she said, "Are you kidding me? No one in their right mind could discern from that footnote that the sourcing for the dossier came from the Clinton campaign and Democrats." And it's true, isn't it, David?
Yes, it is. And anyone in their right mind better read your book from cover to cover and not just that page, if they honestly want to know what happened here, because you folks have been reporting on this stuff in detail that nobody else has reported on. And if you're interested in the facts, read the book and get the facts and listen in every day. Listen, back to the FISA documents. Remember, as you reported on this show, the FISA court presiding judge herself said in a letter to Congress, there is no bar to the Department of Justice turning over these application documents. We suggest you go to the Department of Justice and get it from them. And the American people deserve it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we're with Sara Carter, the terrific Fox News contributor, investigative reporter, David Schoen, one of the best lawyers in America, a civil liberties attorney. These are two of the people that I think know a great deal about the Russia hoax, the title of my book, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. You guys are good enough to stick around for after the break. We're going to squeeze one in right here. This is Greg Jarrett. I'm filling in for Sean Hannity on The Sean Hannity Show. Welcome back to The Sean Hannity Show. I'm Greg Jarrett in for Sean today. We've been talking about my book. Comes out Tuesday called The Russia Hoax. Get it on Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. Final thoughts now with Sara Carter and David Schoen. Sara?
Well, I think we've got to keep our eyes on the prize. I'm very excited about your book, Greg. I can't wait to read through the whole thing. I'm waiting for it to come to my home. But as far as this investigation is concerned, I think the most important thing we need to be looking for is if and when Congress moves forward with this investigation, will those documents be exposed? Will we see what actually took place? And I think more importantly, will the president decide eventually to release those documents, to declassify some of the documents that Congress has been requesting so that the public can know the truth?
All right. Sara, your book, by the way, arrives FedEx tomorrow morning. Be on the lookout. David, I've got to shoot one off to you, FedEx, but your final thoughts.
Okay, I can't wait to get the book. Look, my final thoughts are, let's not let this Cohen salacious incident and Helsinki derail the focus from Strzok and Page and Mueller. Strzok and Page are the two of the largest disgraces our government has had in many recent years. Maybe an equal disgrace is the performance of the Democrats on those committees who should have been outraged, who should have not taken the position the end justifies the means, but who Jackson Lee and Nadler speak out against government misconduct, but not when President Trump is the victim of it. Shame on them. Let's get back to focusing on what damage was done by this horrible misconduct.
And what damage is still being done.
Yeah.
Right.
Sara Carter, David Schoen, thank you both. And, you know, Sara, your book's arriving tomorrow. David, I'm going to put one in the mail. I'm going to put one in the mail to you today. Thank you both for being with us today.